When you hear taxes, yes, you should think May 17th. Why? Because that is the extended filing deadline and it is only 10 days away. We don't want you to wait until the very last minute, but if you do, you'll at least have the right advice to guide you. Kevin Robinson with Robinson Tax Services joins us today on 2 Wants to Know, taking your questions related to taxes. To get your questions answered, you need to text your question. Here's the number, 336-379-5775. Remember, this is a text only. Do not call. All right, so first and foremost, the tax day is May the 17th. That is it.
Yes, ma'am, that is it. That is May 17th, the filing and pay date. And of course, you can get an extension, but keep May 17th in mind. That is sort of the tax deadline, moved up from April 15th.
All right, so let's talk about this, because for a little while, North Carolina was still charging people interest on their tax payment if they didn't pay it by April 15th, because they had to change a law, but now that has been changed.
That is correct. There was House Bill 279, I understand, Tanya. In fact, I learned it today, that became law April 28th. So North Carolina cannot charge interest on taxes that were paid between April 15th and May 17th. So it has been moved up to May 17th to coincide with the federal, as well as to coincide with a waiver of the penalty up through May 17th.
All right, and I know that was a little bit of a formality, but it had to be done, and so that is where it is. So everything is due the right way on May the 17th. So the first question we have from a viewer is, how do I apply for an extension?
Well, it's that time of year to apply for one. Yes, that's a good question, Tanya. The thing to keep in mind for the federal is Form 4868, and you can apply electronically as part of your tax software. But keep in mind, if you typically owe taxes every year and you think you're going to owe for 2020, then be sure to send the money in either electronically or with the form in the mail. Make sure it gets postmarked or paid by May 17th. So that's 4868 for the federal and D410, I believe, for North Carolina to file for the extension.
Yeah, and those are pretty easy to find. And again, the big point is you still have to pay by May 17th. That's just a paperwork deadline.
That is correct. That's the filing deadline, and therefore you need to make sure that they have everything paid in by May 17th. Yes.
Okay, so this person is asking, I still haven't gotten my tax return from last year. What's the holdup?
Well, that's a good question. In fact, I was looking today at Kipling's tax letter, and there are still returns from 2019 of refunds that are not there. So if they haven't gotten it and they have exhausted their resources trying to contact the IRS, and by phone is not the easiest thing, they may want to get the taxpayer advocate service involved in their case to try to help them track down why it's not there. So they should have happened, but again, not knowing all the particulars of the case, why it hasn't happened, I don't know, but obviously they should have had it. So yes, the taxpayer advocate service can help.
So, because one of the big things was if you did file by paper, be prepared to maybe even wait still a little bit longer for 2019, because they still had paper returns on their desks.
That's what I've actually saw today in Kipling's tax letter, which was kind of shocking that in one sense it's not. This is the carryover from the COVID year of 2020.
All right, so this person is asking, if my spouse and I were planning to file separately and one already filed, should we amend to file together or continue to file separate?
Okay, if one has filed, I got a situation that's somewhere similar to this where one is filed separately, but then they both now agree to file jointly. So if they typically get it in by the due date, which normally the due as far as amend the return, typically by April 15th, and this year is May 17th. So they have the option, if one is already filed separately, but they decide to file jointly, then they can amend the separately filed return to make it jointly as an amended return, as long as we get it done by May 17th.
Okay, so they can still do that. All right, this person is asking, if you got the stimulus money, are we being taxed on it?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of people are asking, but the thing to keep in mind that it is not taxable. It is basically a reconciliation against the recovery rebate credit on line 30 of your 1040 form and also 1040 SR. So there's no tax on it for 2020 return, and then people were getting the $1,400 per person recently and per dependents for 2021. It'll play out again in 2021 tax year, which we'll file next year. So there's no tax on the stimulus check.
Okay, this person is saying, will there be a penalty if you don't pay the estimated tax on time on that May 17th?
There is, as long as there's two penalties kicking in here, that number one is a late filing penalty, and then there's a late payment penalty. So depending on if they don't pay enough in by May 17th, but they do file an extension, then the extension should at least cover the late filing penalty. But again, the extension is a filing extension only, so there could be a penalty for late payment after May 17th.
Because it starts accruing interest, right, as you go. When you haven't paid, they expect that their money is in there.
That's right. I mean, basically, if you even if you have to make a good faith estimate with the extension, and you know you're going to owe, send the money in with the extension, whether electronically or with the the respective extension forms in the mail. Get it sent to them. And if you do a refund, then the extension will not hurt you. It'll just extend the time to get your refund back.
Right. Okay. But there's not like a $500 penalty for missing that first day right off the bat. Okay, that's good to know. All right, we're going to continue to answer your questions about taxes. You can text us your questions. We'll be back for one more segment.